Welcome into a Wednesday, October 29th edition, a Frozen Frenzy hangover edition. I don't really know what to say. There were 16 games last night. There was a lot going on, Carter Hutton. We're streaming live on the Daily Faceoff YouTube, as always. We're also a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 16 games last night. 5 of them, basically 1 in every 3 going to overtime or a shootout. We had some insane individual performances. We had a couple of long winning streaks in New Jersey and Utah come to a close. It was a good night of hockey.
It was a lot. It's a lot. I love that we do it. I wish we maybe did it on a Saturday or a Sunday where you can really lengthen it out from noon Eastern on or something like that. But it's a lot to take in. It was a lot of good matchups. It's a lot of fun. And then tonight we got 1 on the board. That's the way the NHL likes to do it. And shocker, the Leafs get the 1 of the only games tonight.
Yeah, lone game tonight in the NHL's Leafs Blue Jackets. We'll have more on that in our betting talk a little bit later. But I think you're right. It's a little bit odd that this isn't happening in February when you don't really have a lot of other sports as competition. But I mean, I guess they did it on a Tuesday, so it didn't conflict with the NFL or whatever. I don't know. It was interesting. Also, the other shitty thing, there was no way to watch it in Canada. There were 0 nationally televised games north of the border last night.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just a weird way to do it. And I guess you're competing with the Blue Jays that are taking over the screens, and obviously a big win there. But this was an exciting night. I do like the way it's played out. There's a lot of different storylines. It's a lot to compress, but it's a good sell in the United States. And I think, Ty, like I've said a lot, is we don't have to worry about the Canadian hockey fan because they're going to stick with us no matter what happens. We're trying to get in those non-traditional markets, and that's what the goal of the NHL is, to grow those franchises. And whether you like Gary Bettman or not, he grows these franchises, and they're worth a lot more money nowadays.
Oh, yeah. Every year it seems like we're talking about that Sportico article that comes out in September or October, and it's every franchise valuation is up 10 to 15% or whatever. Anyways, we'll push that to the side. We're going to be joined by Steve Peters in a little bit. We're going to dig in to the Minnesota Wild and their slow start to the year. It's something Jeff Marek hinted at yesterday. Wanted to dive deeper on it today. But to kick things off, we got a little bit of breaking news both yesterday and this morning. So we'll start with what's fresh, and that is Logan Cooley's extension with the Utah Mammoth. It is an 8-year deal, $10 million AAV. So Cooley gets himself a total of $80 million, and he will become the Mammoth's highest paid player when this contract kicks in, and he'll be just 22 years old when this contract kicks in. The 3rd overall pick in 2022 has 121 points in his first 168 career games played, but he's off to a over point per game start to this season. What do you make of the Mammoth and Cooley agreeing to terms on a big ticket?
It's a big ticket. And again, forecasting deals, it's a big number. A player who's shown his worth. He can score 65 points last year, 25 goals. He's off to a great start. He plays on a young, up-and-coming lineup. And for me, it's one of these ones where I just don't think the price is going to get any cheaper, right? This is a good deal to get locked up. And these guys in this young window of talent that are skilled have this short window to get that extra year. And I think teams can use that for leverage right now to get a team to, instead of letting him, grow and maybe make more money, you can advertise that 8th year to get him locked up early. And with Gunther and Peterka, him playing up the middle, he is a superstar. I think they did a good job with easing him in the NHL. He's in a good spot now. This team has a lot of key guys locked up. I think there's some good youth talent with a mix of veterans that maybe become, pieces that get moved out, but their core is there now. And you know what I've seen, that reading articles today about it, their ownership is so involved and so excited about the people and the personnel and the talent on the rink as well as off the rink, which I think is so important in Arizona, where Bill Armstrong had these guys that used to come down to the Coyotes, and it was a retirement home. We're now in Utah. This is a team that they don't want that culture. They want this team to be up and coming. The market is fresh. There's an excitement about hockey there, and you're seeing it firsthand by them lock up their huge center for the next 8 years here.
I think is a great piece of work for Utah in that front office with Bill Armstrong. You go look now at the core pieces that they have locked up for the next number of seasons, for the next 2+ years. It's not just, Logan Cooley now. It's Peterka, it's Keller, Gunther, Sergachev, Vejmelka, all these guys, 2+ seasons. And actually, we had to use the 2+ seasons metric because of Clayton Keller, who's got 2 more years left. Everyone else on this board, Cooley, Peterka, Gunther, Sergachev, Vejmelka, they have 4+ years remaining on their contract. So this core is locked up. And again, the expectation is that the cap is just going to keep shooting up and up and up. And next year, if we get to that $107 million number, Bill Armstrong is going to have $30 million in cap space with 8 forwards, 6 defensemen, and a goalie all under contract already. $30 million to basically sign Nick Schmaltz and then go upgrade your team wherever you want. They're in a tremendous position. We talked earlier in the week about how many draft picks they have and how they could make a splash at this year's deadline. We're at the point, every big name that comes on the market for the next 18 months is going to be connected to Utah, and it's because they got out ahead of a lot of these extensions.
Yeah, and that's always I guess for Bill Armstrong, it was patience at times, accumulating picks and taking it on the chin when you were running a losing team and things weren't going well. But there was this vision at the end, right? And that was the goal. And I think he did this the right way, building from within and having a few picks that came up and hit. And for me, the outlier in this one, like you look at that Vejmelka deal, right? He's at 4.75 till 29-30 season. Those are the way he is playing. And you look at that average of what guys were making at 8.25. Majority of guys that are good make 8.25. That was the number. That was where it was at. This is going to be an absolute steal as we get down the road here. He's still a young goalie. He's a guy that's going to come into his own more and more. So I just think building from within in that sense, right? He's 29 years old. He's going to get better. He's only been over here for a few years. So this is a really good job by Bill Armstrong. And now the deal, right? Like you look at the Peterka deal to Buffalo and how he's had success. Having the big Sergachev splash to come over to Utah. It takes a lot to do that, but it took time and patience to get him to this point. And now he's reaping the benefits of it.
I mean, you have the player side of all of this. I sit there and I go, it's hard for me, disconnected from the situation, to judge someone who takes $80 million in basically guaranteed earnings over the next 8 seasons here. But there's a little bit of me that goes, man, if you're Logan Cooley, you're going to be 22 when this kicks in. You know where the salary cap's going. And if you have one 90-point season, which he could very easily do this year, if not next year, if he would have taken a shorter term deal, gone the Auston Matthews route where, maybe you just signed for 4 years right now, and he probably still would have gotten an $8 million AAV on a 4-year deal, like still would have gotten significant money. There's probably a world where 4 years from now, he could have easily commanded $15 million a year. But I guess the trade-off is because he's so young, he'll still get another contract at some point in his career. So maybe it's a bit of a moot point.
Yeah, it's like the Jack Eichel deal, right? You look at Jack had 8 by 10 and now he's up and he just signed his next deal, right? So it is that, I guess it's the new age bridge deal, right? We're bridging out. He's still going to get another contract. He continues. It's actually wild to say because that's the way it is now, right? And again, they're forecasting the deals. And I think it comes down to the individual, Ty. The risk reward of term versus dollar, right? So it is a factor. And at the end of the day, when you start to think about 80 million versus, waiting out a whole few years and you're still going to make your money, it's a good safety net for a young player like this.
Another big extension came down the pipe yesterday, a little bit older, but it's 24-year-old Thomas Harley, who also gets an 8-year deal with the Dallas Stars. Remember, this is the last season that players can sign an 8-year extension, so a couple of teams and players taking advantage of that. But a similar AAV, $10.587 million for the Canadian defenseman that's been playing down in Dallas. Similar conversation here, I guess. The core that Dallas has locked up is really, really impressive. Miro Heiskanen's got 3 more seasons left. Esa Lindell long-term. Now you got Harley. So the cornerstone pieces of that blue line are locked up. And up front, it's Rantanen, it's Wyatt Johnson, it's Roope Hintz, all under contract. Ottinger has a long-term deal here. So again, they add Harley to this mix and a team in Dallas that should very easily continue to be a cup contender for the next 8 seasons now. They got a lot of big, big names locked up.
And one thing for me with this lineup is when you look at that back end and you look at Lindell, Heiskanen, Harley, and then obviously Ottinger and net. That is like a staple core to build around from the net out, right? And that's something that's so important. In a star-studded Central Division where we have teams, you're kind of always going to be in the mix when you can have a shutdown D pair. And we see, I think when I look at Harley, I think the growth that he got last year being thrown into the Four Nations Cup was so huge for him, for experience, for confidence, where he wasn't in the mix, right? If injuries happen, he gets thrown into the ringer, and he performed very well. He was a big difference maker, arguably one of Canada's best defensemen on the biggest stage in a short-term tournament, which was a confidence boost for a player like that. You're a guy that has a lot of upside, but all of a sudden you get thrust into this international spotlight and you succeed. And then you take a step back to the NHL where confidence, just everything that goes with that is so important. So this is a huge signing. And again, like, is Jim Nill not a masterclass in contracts? Like, it feels like the Dallas Stars are continually good, and it looks like they're going to be good for a long time. And I think Jim Nill needs a lot of credit in this situation because he's done such a great job with this organization.
So I gave you the numbers on Utah, and things are a little bit tighter out in Dallas. So again, if we assume a $107 million cap ceiling for next year, they have $20 million remaining. Now they have 9 forwards, 5 defensemen, and both goalies under contract. So that's a lot of pieces in place. But with that $20 million, they need to find a way to fit in Jason Robertson and continue to round out that roster a little bit. They have some other free agents, a guy like Maverick Bourque, 23. He's going to need a new ticket. They'll probably need to find another top 4 defenseman to add into that group. Like, money's a little bit tighter in Dallas. And again, you look at all those names that are locked up. You look at all the money they're giving out. Like Jason Robertson, if you're sitting there and you're looking at, Rantanen got 12, and I'm not saying he's Mikko Rantanen, but, Thomas Harley got 10.5. If you're Robertson and you see what Kyle Connor gets and you go, okay, well, if he's up there, I'm probably a double-digit AAV as well. That $20 million they have left, it could wither away pretty quickly if Robertson's getting 10+, which he, again, could easily demand.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because this is that switch over too, where I think with Stankoven moving out and Rantanen coming in, taking that big deal, it trimmed off a lot of that cap that was going to go to Robertson. So it is going to be tricky, I think, moving forward. Now it becomes down to Robertson, where does he want to be too, right? Because there is the Dallas, Texas living is a good situation, right? When you talk about taxes, when you talk about money in your pocket and way of life, which I think adds value to this deal for them. But with the cap going up again, if he takes a healthy number, I still think you can promote from within too, because the Texas Stars, their American Hockey League team, are consistently good and they're consistently developing players. So now if you can get a few guys on team-friendly contracts, maybe on two-ways or younger players that can plug into your bottom 6 here and there, all of a sudden then that cap restriction doesn't come as much for the Dallas Stars. But they're going to have to do some fancy footwork as they move, but that's the problem of having a really, really good hockey team.
Yeah, good problems to have when you're like, oh my God, we have too many all-star caliber players to have to try to extend. So yeah, Robertson, again, 2 years away from being a UFA, 1 more year of being an RFA, but his contract is up after this season. So that's where I'm sure a lot of Stars fans' attention is moving today. We're going to get to Petey in a couple of minutes here, Huts, but let's go back to what happened on the ice last night. I mentioned that a couple of long winning streaks in New Jersey and Utah came to a close, but how about a couple of teams that are starting to put together some winning streaks, including the Dallas Stars, who won their 3rd in a row. They climb back above 500. The Tampa Bay Lightning also winning their 3rd in a row. They climb back to dead on 500. They're now 4-4-2 on the year. So a couple of situations where, you weren't really panicking all that much, but they were starting to pop up on the watch list of like, ooh, how long is this slow start going to kind of continue? Who needed the winning streak more? It's a pick 'em. Are you going Dallas or Tampa?
Tampa. I think Tampa needed it more just because of the success that they've had in the past and I guess maybe the contracts and some of the deals that they've made. They've given up so many draft picks for them to not have a good regular season, to not be in the mix, and to really, really fall behind in the Atlantic seems like a daunting task to get back in it. Where with Dallas, I don't worry as much, Ty. Just like we talked about, we just touched on their lineup, their depth, where they're at. They've been good for so many years, so it felt like it was just a matter of time until they got going. Where with Tampa, I do like their lineup. Their top 6 is really good, but I do see holes in their lineup. And when Vasilevsky isn't going, I worry a little bit about Jonas Johansson carrying the mail, trying to be that good backup. So for me, Tampa was the team that I thought they needed a little kickstart here, and it was obviously a great winning streak to get them going.
Yeah, the case I would make for Dallas is just because they had the coaching change this offseason. They went with Glenn Gulutzan, who hadn't been a head coach in the league in, a number of years. I think it was about 7 or 8. And yeah, they were 3-3-1. It wasn't a brutal start by any stretch of the imagination, but just with that new coach, I think there was maybe a little bit more uneasiness there of like, okay, maybe we didn't make the right call. What is Glenn Gulutzan going to have this team playing like? So again, Dallas just rattling off 3 in a row. They're back to a 650 points percentage. The other thing too is that their division is really damn good. So like if a slow or average, I shouldn't even call it slow, it was an average start. If an average first 7 games turns into an average first 15 games, how far behind the 8 ball do you put yourself there? So I think for Dallas, it's a bit of a sigh of relief that they were able to put together a couple of quick victories. The other one I got before we get to PD, between St. Louis and Minnesota. We're staying in the Central Division here. I mean, Minnesota 3-5-3 on the year, just 3 wins in their first 11 games. The loser point is doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of keeping their points percentage at a somewhat decent level. And the other team is St. Louis, who also only have 3 wins on the season. Which fan base should be more concerned heading into November, St. Louis or Minnesota?
I think for me, it's St. Louis. I just think the fact that, where they're at and, the goalie struggles with Joel Hofer. How many minutes are you going to play Jordan Binnington? Where is he going to be at? And then I guess maybe the lack of production up front, right? When you talk about Robert Thomas and Kyrou and these guys that are supposed to be their budding superstars, and they have a little bit of an aging group with Buchnevich and Shen. So I think St. Louis is a little more worrisome because for so many years you've relied on great, consistent goaltending and backup goaltending, and you're not getting it right now. In a compressed season where you have the Olympics and you're going to send a lot of guys to the Olympics, it's a little more worrisome. Not that Minnesota doesn't have its problems. I know we're going to get more into that, but Minnesota still feels like a team that is deeper, has better goaltending, has the whole package of a team that I think will play itself back into reality here, Ty.
Let's keep cruising along and get to our big segment, talk a bit more about the Minnesota Wild. It's the Film Room with Steers, and it's brought to you by Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats to paper plates if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip before, during, and after the game. Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. Steve Peters from ESPN and Inside the Coaches Room joins us, as he does every week on the show. And today, PD, we are talking about the Minnesota Wild. And we'll start with the lack of 5-on-5 scoring, probably the most concerning sign for this team. And I'll give you sort of a multiple choice kind of style question here. Is this just players fighting through a slump? Is this a roster composition issue? Is this a coaching issue?
I think it's all of the above, and that's a really bad sign for the Minnesota Wild, because you start looking at this 5-on-5 goal where they're at right now. They're 32nd in the league. This is a team that's talented up front. They have high-skilled players. They got Kaprizov, Boldy, Rossi. They should be doing better 5-on-5, but you go look historically, last season they were 29th. Year before that, they were 25th. Year before that, they were 30th. This is a team over the last 4 years. If you take all of the stats, they're 29th. There's only 3 teams that have scored fewer 5-on-5 goals since 22, and that's San Jose, Anaheim, and Chicago. So this is a Minnesota team that has struggled to score for years.
So, PD, like with this squad, like, is it a personnel issue? Like, because you have that Kaprizov contract, right? You have this big deal, high expectations. I think everyone who goes out there and plays, they're going to be comparing him to everybody in the league. So what? Is this a depth issue for them? Like, where do they go from here to try to get this team going 5-on-5?
Yeah, I think it's a concern. And I think when you look at what's going on with Billy Guerin and you finally get rid of the Kaprizov and Suter deals, and all I've heard about Minnesota for years is just wait till those guys are off the books, and then this team's going to blow up and be a Stanley Cup contender. Well, they're not. And they just burden themselves with the most expensive contract in hockey. So I don't know how much room he's going to have over the years to build that depth, because we all know that if you're going to win and win consistently, you need to have guys that can play up and down the lineup. And this Minnesota Wild team right now, they're top heavy. They did break up the Boldy and Kaprizov off their top line because they're trying to spread out the scoring, and that's not working. So yeah, I do think there's a roster issue, and more importantly with their roster, you look at their back end. And this is a back end that has really been driven by Jared Spurgeon for years. He's 36. He's minus 12, and he has 1 5-on-5 point. If you're going to create offense in the National Hockey League, it has to start with your back end. You've got to be. Montreal's got 33 points from the back end. Minnesota's got 18. You have to be able to get the puck to the net, and you've got to be able to transport the puck up the ice. And right now, the Minnesota Wild's back end isn't contributing to the offense like they need to be.
So, Petey, for me, like the fact that their back end, right? So we talk about their back end and their structure. Is it worrisome they gave Philip Gustafsson that contract? And then you have Jesper Wallstad, who hasn't done good. He's kind of an unproven first-round pick, right? His numbers aren't great. He hasn't really got the job done when he's had a chance in the NHL, and they give him the backup job just because he's somebody's baby as a pick. Is this worrisome where it gets to the point where, can we even play this kid? Like, how long do they go with this until they go and try to find somebody else that can be a steady backup?
Yeah. So the problem gets worse because they're not only not scoring, but they're not stopping the puck. And you look at what Gustafsson did a year ago. After his first 20 starts a year ago, he was first in goals against at a 199, and he was second in save percentage at 931. This year, 342 goals against and an 890. That's not good enough. Like Gustafsson is not stopping the pucks. Not only the hard, high danger shots, he's not stopping the shots he's supposed to stop. And Wallsted's numbers are worse than that. And so you're looking at a team that really needs to get saved by their goaltender. And Hutz, you've been on teams like that. Like you're struggling to score. You need your goaltender to steal you a game. And you need to help get that confidence so you can get back on track. That's not happening with Minnesota. They are not scoring, and they're giving up way too many goals on the other end of the ice. Minnesota's a mess right now, and there is trouble brewing in Minnesota.
So I'm looking at John Hynes here, and again, he's in his now, well, it's basically been 2.5 seasons since he took over. This is the second season, and, they lost in round one last year. They missed the playoffs the season he took over from Dean Evason. There are a lot of new coaches in the NHL, and it's weird how much turnover there was over the last 12 to 18 months in so many other benches. Do you look at Evason as a guy who's maybe the first coach on the hot seat this year? Or sorry,
Evason? Yeah, Evason is probably Evason. Honestly, that's probably a mistake. You look at what Evason did for this team. He was a player's coach. Guys like him, but he could also coach himself into the X's and O's part of the game. I think he was a big addition to Columbus and why they're doing so well. You look at what John Hynes has done, man. And I'm not here to criticize coaches. I'm not. I'm just going to pull out statistics. In New Jersey, he made the playoffs once in 5 years. You go to Nashville, a team that was still competing perennially for a playoff spot. He didn't win a playoff round and missed the playoffs 2 of his 4 years. So yeah, there's a concern. There's a concern on John Hynes, and I'd put him right in one of the warmest seats in the National Hockey League right now. I did talk early about John Cooper, and I know John Cooper is got cups and all that in Tampa, but you just wait in Tampa. There's still some issues there. Minnesota's going to be first on the list. John Hynes right now, he's not inspiring the players that need to be playing at their best. He's not inspiring that kind of confidence. There's a concern, and this is a team that's not generating off the rush. They're not getting, I know they're getting good high danger shot opportunities, but this is a team that's got to play with speed and pace, and they're not doing it right now. So yes, you're going to have to look at what they're doing structure wise, and that falls on the coach.
Petey, for me, what do you think the leash would be on him in like a season like this, where you gave him Kaprizov that contract in a tough Central Division? Like, where is Hynes' leash? Like, how long are they going to let this go? Because it feels like a daunting task to fall behind in the Central and even try to catch up for a team like Minnesota who hasn't had playoff success, outside of the first round.
Yeah, I think it's short, and I don't think. I think when you go back a decade, you could see a coach like this and go, "Oh, they'll let him finish out the year." Billy Guerin's under a lot of pressure here in Minnesota. Minnesota expects to win. You sign Kaprizov to that a huge deal, so you want him to carry the mail. I think Billy Guerin's under pressure, and when a general manager is under that kind of pressure to succeed and make the playoffs, he puts that same pressure right back onto the head coach. And so I don't think this is something that Minnesota is going to wait forever. I do think there are a couple of things when you look at Minnesota. Their shooting percentage right now is last in the league. It means that's not going to be sustainable. They're going to score more goals. And I do think that they will get a little better. They're fourth in shots on goal. They've got high danger shots. They're second. So they are going to score more. But if you don't see this starting to turn around by the first of the year, meaning that they're in striking distance of a playoff spot by the first of the year, I would think that this is the team prime for a coaching change, because you go back to St. Louis that was last to first when you get the Berube bump. That may be something they do in Minnesota. I don't think that this will last forever. If they're not around it by the first of the year, I would expect them to make a move.
And again, with how many coaching changes there have been over the last 12 to 18 months, there's some quality names out there on the market as well. Before we let you go, Petey, obviously you have a connection to the Arizona Coyotes. What do you make of the Logan Cooley extension in Utah?
It's funny. I listened to what you guys had to say, and I talked to some people after he turned down the previous deal at just over $9 million. And with you see the Kaprizov deal and what direction this is going. Good grief. Like, this kid 5 years from now, this is going to be a phenomenal contract for the Utah Mammoth. I would bet on myself and see this going like a 3, 4, 5 year deal. Get my money now, but get it again before I hit 30. I think it's great for Utah. Utah and Bill Armstrong have done an outstanding job of locking up their young core for a very long time. And I think that's surprising right now where you see where the salaries are headed. Look out for Utah. And I didn't have them as a playoff team this year. I think they're for real. I think they are going to be a team that finishes 7th to 9th this year still. I don't think they're going to finish top 3 in the Central. I still think there's too much pressure on down below. But once they make the playoffs, this is a team that's going to be in the playoff year after year after year. It's a great signing by Bill Armstrong.
Steve, as always, appreciate your time. Thanks for popping on.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
All right, Huts, let's get into our daily face-off inbox, #AskDFO. I will say one thing that's really surprising is I feel like people outside of Minnesota don't criticize Bill Guerin as much as the fan base does. And again, some of that is understandable. You're always going to be more critical in your own market, but just kind of reading through what people are saying here, there's heat on Bill Guerin to maybe, and again, coaching change, sure. How many times does a GM get to make a coaching change? That's always an interesting question. He might be a GM who has to be active on the trade market, though.
Yeah, I think it might get to that point where there might be some moves to be made. My only concern is, like, I think Petey made a really good point about it, is like Dean Evanson is like such a good player's coach. Like, he is literally a guy, when I was in Nashville, he was in the American Hockey League. He's an unbelievable guy, and you can see what he's done in Columbus, like with non-negotiables, where John Hines is more of like a line in the sand kind of guy. Like, he's harder to deal with. He's a little more gritty, and I just worry about that relationship being frayed with, like, you have a star-studded cast there, and Kaprizov and some of these guys. I just don't know where that relationship's going to go with the star players in Minnesota. So, yeah, Billy Guerin is under a lot of pressure. That is definitely the main point here, Ty.
We threw a poll question up in there. Will Minnesota turn their season around? 47% said yes, 53% said no. And again, to your point about how long can his leash be, when you're in a division where already Utah off to a hot start, you know Colorado, Dallas, and Winnipeg are going to be factors, and in all likelihood, you can probably lock those teams in to be playoff teams this year. There's maybe, we might already be on October 29th sitting here going, all right, there's one playoff spot open in for the Central Division here, and it's going to go to maybe Minnesota, but you're already behind Nashville. Chicago's somehow having a great start to the year. St. Louis might turn it around. Like, every team in that Central Division right now looks like you could maybe even make a case for them to grab the spot. So again, late early in Minnesota.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't know where it goes from. I guess the weakest team when I look at that, you think is going to end up being Nashville, with Hawks taking a step forward. But the top 5 to 6 teams, there's really no easy games, and they're going to continually stack up points. So they need to figure it out quickly if someone wants to keep their job around there.
All right, let's get to our daily bets, brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I once again missed my shot prop parlay by one shot last night. I think it's like the third time in the last week that this has happened to me. Jackson Blake was one away from cashing. Pat, you hit yours with the block shots.
No, I don't think I did, because Ekholm only had one, didn't he?
Oh.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
They maybe have readjusted that, but I don't think I hit that one. I was watching it all night, but unfortunately, I don't think I did.
Huts, Emmett Finney, did he cash for you?
No, he didn't cash. Everyone else got a point. The youngster couldn't get it done for. I should have took Dylan Larkin. He was scoring and getting points every which way. I tried to get cocky with the young guy, and it bit me, but that's okay. We're back tonight. We're getting hot tonight.
Yeah, everyone has to pick from one game, so I can lead us off with a little same game parlay. I got a shot prop in there. I got the over between Toronto and Columbus. They're playing on the second half of back-to-back, so who knows? Could be a little sloppy. Matthews to get a point, Boone Jenner to get 2+ shots, and the Blue Jackets and the Leafs to go over 6.5, plus 220 for mine. Pat, what do you got?
I'm going to go directly against you. I'm hitting the under on this one, and it's kind of just going on feels because, like yesterday we had such a great NHL day, and today just one game seems kind of lame, so I'm just going for the under, plus 100. I need a win really bad.
You know what, Pat? It doesn't seem lame. It is lame. We only got one game to dissect tonight. And honestly, I think it's not a bad bet. I guess I'll be not sure what I'm cheering for. As long as Johnny Tavares gets his anytime goal. He's knocking on 500's door. I look for him to get in there, especially on a back-to-back. It's kind of one of those games where we're going to muck it up. Get Johnny T to the front of the net to find the back of it for me. Get me back in the winning column.
Yeah, goal number 500 potentially for Tavares in his career, as you said. Good stuff. Daily bets for Bet365. Wrapping up the show with a little bit of garbage time again with 16 games and the 2 contract extensions. There's so much for us to get to. We wanted to save this one, or wanted to talk about this one a little bit at the end. Connor Bedard, Huts, first career hat trick for the first overall pick from 2023. And man, as you watch these highlights, if you're a Chicago Blackhawks fan, how good are you feeling right now? Like, not only is your team off to a great start, not only is a guy like Frank Nazar looking like he's going to be a superstar in the NHL, but you got Connor Bedard, who through 10 games is basically at a 50-goal pace and first career hat trick, first of many, one would assume.
And just watching these goals here, I think we're going to show the third one here off the face-off. His release is just absurd. And one thing I also thought about in this moment is Linus Ullmark getting another rest day again anymore? They gave up 7 last night, so that definitely backfired on them. But this is something good to be excited about in Chicago. You know, an organization that saw their Kane and Taves, and now with Bedard and Nazar, what's going on? It's got to be uplifting here in the goaltending they're getting. So things are looking good in Chicago. I don't know if they're ready yet, but this is a good sign last night.
You know what's interesting, though, is these are the exact same conversations we were having last year about the Montreal Canadiens. They got off to a good start, and we all sat. And, like, honestly, it's hard to project when a team is going to take that leap forward. And I think in the West this year, a lot of people had the Anaheim Ducks kind of circled as the team that could do it, and they're off to a good start as well. But Chicago at 5-3-2, a 600 points percentage. And if Bedard and Nazar are truly going to be this good, man, maybe they do just find a way to linger for way longer than we'd expect.
Yeah, it could be one of those things too. And I'm with you too. And I think it's a great point bringing up the Montreal Canadiens. I was very hesitant. You know, I'm like, there's no sustainability here. It's one line, it's one D man, it's this, it's that. And, you know, confidence is a powerful thing with these younger players, and they have the energy to get it done. So it's exciting. I hope it continues. And again, it just mucks up the Central Division even more if the Hawks start banking points.
And speaking of the Habs, Cole Caulfield last night with an OT winner. He now has the record for the most OT goals in franchise history with 11. It has been an unbelievable start to the year for Cole Caulfield. 8.6% of his career goals have come in overtime. That is a wild stat.
He is a guy that just his skill and speed and release are fit for that 3-on-3 kind of pond hockey style of play. And it's exciting to watch. And again, when you think how exciting this team is, Ty, 5-on-5 with Demidov and Hudson and Caulfield. Now, when you go to 3-on-3, it's an exciting time to watch. And again, one thing I did enjoy last night about all these games is obviously you can't take them all in. But when games get late, it's tied overtime, you can flip between it and just kind of catch the end 3-on-3. It was an exciting night for hockey. And obviously, if you're in Montreal right now, the sky is blue. Things are looking up, and it's about time. It's been a long time coming for Habs fans.
All right, that is a wrap on today's edition of a show. A big shout out to everybody in the YouTube, including a couple of people like, oh man, you always make me say the weird names, at General Soreness. First time watching the show. Thank you. We're here every single weekday at noon Eastern. Enjoy the one hockey game. Enjoy the one baseball game tonight as well. Game 5 of the World Series. And we'll see you all right back here tomorrow at noon Eastern. Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.